There's scarce a mile of the bottom of the river I haven't walked on, unquote.
I heard it outside.
That was Eads.
Have you got a business card? You got a card?
Yes, I do.
Can I have it?
Yeah. Okay.
Is there a price?
Well, I don't know.
Where do you live?
I live in Claremore, Oklahoma, hometown of Will Rogers.
Oh wow, Oklahoma.
So
So
you've lived since yeah.
you want to come to
I gave this talk about 10 years ago at the Von Civic Center. The Civil War Round Table. Yeah, but the Elks Lodge. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Can you come to Lebanon, Tennessee sometime?
Pardon?
You want to come to Lebanon, Tennessee sometime?
Oh, I could. I wouldn't mind.
Okay.
Do you know how muddy the Big Muddy is? He's walking on the bottom. I'll tell you how. Okay, well, I'm getting old, so I'm going to kind of sit down for a while. Go through this slide. I can see what you're saying up here. And maybe I'll get energetic and stand up here in a few minutes. Okay. James Buchanan Eads. All right. He was born in 1820 in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. He's known for salvaging wrecks on the Ohio and Mississippi River. He built the gunboats for Grant in the West. How many of you have been to Vicksburg? How many of you seen the Cairo in the shed at Vicksburg? Vicksburg battlefield is really complicated. And you have to wind around to find that shed where the Cairo is. So next time you're at Vicksburg, spend some time, okay? It was torpedoed, all right, and sank. And they found it. The channel that it was in at the time during the war was the Mississippi River, but then the river changed and it was in a side channel. Okay. He built the arch, the first steel bridge in St. Louis. Now you'll find on television a story about Carnegie and the steel, okay, and that Carnegie built the bridge at St. Louis, okay. Well, that's not really the story, all right, but that's another whole talk. That takes a whole hour, all right. And then later in his career, there was a problem with the sandbars at New Orleans. Ships coming from all over the world trying to get to the port of New Orleans could not get over the sandbars on the Mississippi River. What's a cubic foot of waterway?
Less than 8 pounds. Gallons, 8 pounds.
64 pounds, 60 pounds, something like that?
Cubic foot.
What does the cubic foot of water weigh at the bottom of the Mississippi River in New Orleans? 64 pounds? No. Nowhere close to 64 pounds. It only weighs 10 pounds. No. It's full of sand. It weighs twice as much. So when the water's moving down and it's full of sand and the river spreads out and gets wide as an estuary, as a dumping into the ocean, where's the sand do? It just falls down. The Army Corps of Engineers wanted to go to the side of the river and build a lock and dam and have the ships come through a lock and dam. There was a huge fight between the Army Corps of Engineers and Eads. Eads realized that if he channeled the river tight, all the water would not slow down. It would go fast. If it went fast, the sand would go out. It would go out and dump into the ocean where it didn't matter that there was dumped water and sand. Okay. How did he do it? He built huge willow trees. He built huge mats out of willow branches and laid them on the side of the river so they wouldn't wash away. Channeled the river, made the river tight, made the water go fast. Smart man. Okay, 1803, Napoleon sells this western part of the Mississippi River. Okay? That brought boats. Okay, Eads was born in 1795, that's his mom. His mom was born in 1795. They got married around 1816. He had two sisters that died at the ages of 20 and 18. And then in 1820, he was born in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. What's the story about Mooresville right here? Anybody want to tell me the story of Mooresville? Where did the railroad track end from the cotton fields in North Alabama?
I bet that's Mooresville.
What did they do in the year? They built barges. They built barges in Mooresville. When the cotton crop was harvested, they loaded them on the barges. When the spring flood came, the barges went down river to the Ohio, down to Tennessee, to the Ohio, to the Mississippi, down. Okay. All right. They had to float. What we would like to do is have a boat. Steam engines. Okay. All right. Now, why am I showing a steam engine this early? Well, he's 9 years old. They moved from Louisville to Cincinnati. His dad built him a workshop. He was 9 years old and he built a working steam engine. He built one of those. He's 9 years old. Okay? He made models of sawmills and fire engines. Come in. You may come in. We've got empty chairs.
Come to the middle.
Go on around.
Okay?
Or I can drag you a chair in here. Which would you rather?
I don't mind standing over here by the stand.
Oh, do you mind?
Well,
Let me get you a couple of chairs. Continue on. Sorry about that.
I'm telling a story about a 9-year-old, okay? He made toys for his pet rats to power. Would you let your kids play with a pet rat when they're 9 years old? In 1833, he's 13 years old, he moves to St. Louis. On the morning of September the 6th, the day after I was born the 5th, in St. Louis. This is one of the reasons why I like to tell the story. I grew up there. I watched them build the arch. The steamboat Carrollton catches on fire. Eads with the children flee. All is lost. They had to swim to shore. All right. So this is his first time. All right. He was born in 1820. He's 13 years old. It's his first time he's been in the water of the river. Okay. All right. Now, he works at a drugstore in St. Louis. The gentleman running the drugstore up in the library upstairs, there are books about engineering, which he can read. And that's his introduction to engineering. Okay. All right. He's 19 years old. He has folks take a steamboat. We're going to call it, we're going to see a snag boat here. He has folks take the boat and put a crane on it all right? And he's got an air pump, and it swings out over the side of the boat. He hires a diver from Michigan to come down and help him recover a cargo of lead from the river in a sunken steamboat. The diver gets in the water of the Mississippi River, the muddy Mississippi, and says, I'm not doing it. Eads goes to the local brewery someplace and gets a whiskey barrel. He cuts holes in the sides of it, cuts it off at the bottom, cuts holes in the side of it, hooks his air hose up to it, puts his arms in it, and he's lowered down into the water and recovers a cargo of lead from the sunken steamboat. And any of you, an engineer, worked with a boiler? Well, there are very strict engineering structures and codes for building safe boilers. But we didn't have steel in 1833. It wasn't invented yet. They had iron. They'd blow up all the time. Okay, so Shreveport, Louisiana is named for Henry Shreve. He built a steam-powered snag boat, okay? We can see a picture of one here. And the idea was to have two hulls, pull up to where the snag was, hook cables and all, and lift it up out of the, okay? The river was full of snags. Snags would sink a boat when it ran into it. Okay? Here's a cotton boat, packed up, loaded to the brim. Okay? They don't want to sink the cotton. If it sinks, you got to come by and recover it. Okay? There they are. Alright. So Eads builds snag boats, and we're going to see one that he built here in a minute. Okay? Alright. There's a snag boat. He called them submarines. Submarines. 2 words. Okay? Here's the whiskey barrel. I said he was 19 here. Okay, it was 22. Alright. He walks on the bottom of the ocean. There's the chambers. So now they have a way of getting down and recovering cargo. He makes a fortune. He loses money. He makes a fortune. And then there's a great fire in 1849 on the wharf in St. Louis. And many boats burn up and sink into the river. And he is hired to clean away the wreckage and recover the cargo. And he makes a fortune. He's 29 years old. Okay? There was a great fire in St. Louis. What do you think? He's pretty shrewd, pretty good engineer. Never gone to college, never studied engineering. Okay? All right. Here's submarine number 7. Okay? During the Civil War, this was converted into the Ironsides called the Benton. Okay? Now, the Natchez sinks. Steamboat. They don't know where it is. So, how do you find it? He tied the air compressor boat that he was going to be on to a point on the river so that they didn't have to keep using the paddle wheels to stay in place. And then he started walking back and forth, 4 miles on the bottom of the river. Now, he can see. He's in this barrel. He's got eyes, but everything he's looking at is mud. So what is he feeling with? His feet. Okay? That's how he's knowing what's going on. Yeah. Walk to work. Bends the bottom of the Mississippi River. There's scarcely a 50-mile stretch between St. Louis and New Orleans he had not personally explored. Okay? Now we have to talk about the bends a little bit. I'm not going to talk a lot about building the bridge today, because that's really another talk. But an atmosphere of air is 16 pounds, the air pressure, something like that. 33 feet of water is another atmosphere, and another 33 feet of water is another atmosphere. And if you're in if we close the door and put 50 pounds of air in here, we'd all get air bubbles in our blood. And if we walked out, opened the door and walked out, all of a sudden those air bubbles would get really big. He's got to build a rock foundation for the columns of the bridge. So he builds these big rings, caissons of stone, and has a hole in the center. He has a room like this in the hole in the center of the rock, and the whole thing sinks down in the ground. Now, how does it do that? Well, fellas, we all got a shovel. And we're looking at a piece of rock, so we're going to shovel out underneath it, and it's going to go down. Okay? Granite stone by granite stone, it's going to go down. And those are the piers of the bridge in St. Louis that are still standing. Okay? All right. So this is steamboats from the 1950. Eads has built these submarines. The insurance pays 20 to 70% on the recovered cargo. And wrecks over 5 years old that they find are free for the taking. And he's done over 500 recoveries. They're trying to recover a cargo from a bridge. I don't know how many of those containers went in
Baltimore.
Baltimore, yeah. I've been across that bridge. I mean, what a mess. Apparently they had some sort of an engine problem. Okay. So he settles down. He gets married. He starts making glass, because there's no glass factories west of the Mississippi. All right. And he married Martha Nash Dillon, and had 3 children. Martha dies in 1852 of cholera. We take life so much for granted today. I mean, I personally, I take a pill that keeps me alive every day. So then he married his first cousin, Elijah Clark Eads. Oh no, wait a minute. His first cousin, Elijah Clark Eads, is married to Eunice Hagerman, and Clark dies. So Eads marries the widow, and she has 3 daughters. And these are pictures of the folks. So he goes back into the salvage business. He builds 3 new submarines, the third of which was capable of pumping out and raising a sunken hull from the bottom. So now that's a big submarine.
Yep.
Okay. All right. And within a few years, he's up to 10 boats. He's a real, we'd call it a go-getter, I guess, today. He just, I mean, all right. All right. They built a fancy house in St. Louis, and unfortunately, it's really sad the city of St. Louis and the state of Missouri didn't see fit to turn this into a museum. It's gone now. They should have made a museum out of it. This is his Eads' second wife, Hagerman. Okay. And this is the house. I've been to the area. It's Compton Park, I believe. Yeah. Compton Park in St. Louis. So His motto was drive on, keep going, and he did. He, this fire that sunk the 20 riverboats, he salvaged them and made him wealthy. Then in 1857, Buchanan became president, okay, and St. Louis was a thriving city to the west. Now, 1857, we're starting to talk about railroads. There's railroads from other places and they come to St. Louis, but how do they get across the Mississippi River? They put stuff on a barge and take it over. All right. When I was a kid, the USS Admiral was a party boat on the Mississippi River, and it went down in the afternoons for about, I don't know, however far down, and came around. You were going about 5-6 hours. You went down about 2 hours, and then 3 or 4 hours coming back up because you got the current going with you and against you. And what it really was a remodeled train ferry. So you would park this ferry boat on one side of the river, load train cars on it, and take it to the other side. Okay? But they had taken the train tracks out and turned it into a fun time boat. Yeah. And I was on it several times. Well, then comes the Civil War. And things are happening. Eads makes a model of a gunboat and applies for a patent. All right. And this is what his gunboat looked like. Now remember, there's this famous battle between the Monitor and the Merrimack. All right. The U.S., the Army of the North makes a request for gunboats in the West. All right. Eads submits a bid and wins. Okay. He said that he could deliver 7 ironclad boats, okay, for $90,000, okay, in 65 days. That's 2 months. All right. And he even agreed to pay a fine. Okay. So he went right to work. He knew everybody up and down the river because he'd been building the submarines. He'd been building boats forever. He knew how to build a boat. Okay. All right. And he put everybody to work building all the parts and everything. And just south of St. Louis is the village of Carondelet. Now that's the way they say it. The French would say Carondelet, but in St. Louis it's called Carondelet. Okay? All right. And the River de Pere is, there's a road that runs alongside the River de Pere from St. Louis County out. Okay? All right. Now, here's the shipyard in 1861. And this is not a photograph, this is a sketch. But the very first engineering thing that you have to see about this is look at the curved sides of the boats. Now, gentlemen, we're in pine tree country here. And that's probably not pine trees. But how in the heck did they get those things curved? Anybody want to guess?
Yes, they soak them in water. You stain them.
I think you're absolutely right. I think you soak them in hot water probably, or steam,
You stain them.
and get them absolutely soaking wet, and then bend them. And you've got these curved sides. Okay, you've got to build a hull. Okay, yeah. Think of the engineering difficulty doing that. Okay. All right. And you can see the smokestacks for the boilers. All right. Ironclad, they were called pook sturtles. The St. Louis, the Carondelet, the Cincinnati, the Louisville, the Mound City, the Cairo, the Pittsburgh. So we needed 21 steam engines, 35 boilers, 5 boilers per ship. 3 steam engines per ship. Iron plates, thick, 600 tons each. 600 tons. 600 times 2 is 1,200. 1.2 million pounds. Okay? Had the cannons in 65 days. Somebody had to bring the cannons and put them on it. They launched in 45 days. And Pook was the naval arms, how to build the things for the guns to work. Eads was not that person. Pook was. Okay. Eads had iron plates made in Ohio someplace and brought down the river. How do you know your iron plate armament's going to be good enough?
Test fire.
Anybody?
Test it.
Well, what did Eads always do in his life? He tested things. All right, folks, get me a cannon. Oh, I got a cannon. There's an iron plate over there. It's a mile away. Shoot at it. Light the fuse. Bang. Let me see the plate. There's a little dent in it. There's a little dent in it. Okay? All right, folks. Yes, sir, Captain. Move the plate a half a mile away. Shoot at it again. All right, load it up, boys. Light the fuse. Bang. Well, how's it look? Well, there's a little bigger dent, Captain Eads. Well, let's do a quarter of a mile then. No, sir. All right, gentlemen. You're war veterans. Why are you not going to shoot at an iron plate that's this thick with a cannon that's only a quarter of a mile away? Who? What?
Ricochet.
What?
Ricochet.
Give this man a gold star. Sir, when that cannonball hits that plate, it's going to splinter and kill us all. He said, okay, you're done. He knew he had armor. He never did things without testing them. He wanted to know it would work. And if it worked, then he can use it. Okay? A lesson in what? All right. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. Well, if you go to Vicksburg, here's a picture of a 32-pounder from the Cairo. All right. All right. And here's a picture of gunboats on the river. Now that's a real picture. That's not a sketch. And you can see the gunboat. You can see a gunboat there. Yeah. That one there. Okay? All right. Here's a USS Essex. Okay? Now, in the Battle of Shiloh, the battle at Fort Donelson up the river. One of Eads' ships was disabled. Somehow a cannonball got through some hole, someplace, went in and caused damage. So it wasn't perfect, but still, it was a gunboat. And it's got that ironclad on it. Okay? All right. So here we are attacking Fort Donelson. All right. All right. So Grant got busy. Fort Donelson in 1862, Fort Henry, Nashville, Shiloh. All right. Here's a picture of the Cairo afloat. All right. And of course, we all know about the war and the control of the Mississippi. Once they could get back up and down the Mississippi River, the South was cut in half. And they had to fight the Tinclads. Now, the Confederates built an iron gunboat, but it never made it to the United States. It was built in England and never made it across the ocean. Okay? And then after the gunboat battles by Eads' boats, the poop turtles, okay, the Merrimack and the Monitor had their fight in the East Coast. Okay? And here's another steamboat with a gun on it. Okay? But you can see that you can very clearly see that a steamboat without armor is very, very susceptible to enormous amounts of damage. Okay. And this is pictures of the Cairo at Vicksburg. So. And some other time, not next week, I gave 3 talks in a row, building the bridges in St. Louis. Okay. So here's kind of the reference materials. And I brought a book on Cairo, and Lee has a copy of it. He just said he bought a copy of it. And I brought some pictures of different things about the bridge and the railroads west. Anyway, that's my story about Eads. Absolutely fascinating individual. Now, ladies, oh, the lady left. Gentlemen,
Yeah.
he is considered by the American Association of Engineers to be in one of the top 10 engineers, period. Okay? Okay. Yeah. There's a book there on to solve the problem of intertransport across what we now use to call the Panama Canal. Okay? He proposed building ships that he could put on a train and haul over the Isthmus of Panama. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, that's my question. All right, thank you.
Who has questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nobody has questions?
Yeah, I get a question.
All right.
Okay, take your picture.
Question. Here's the question.
But you want
So
to
going back to the bridge, got down and I couldn't follow you. Dug out stones around it and it sank down.
he hauled in stones. Here's a stone. He hauled them in and made a stone at the surface. He leveled off the surface, the ground, put a stone ring all the way around it. Okay, it had a room inside of it. Okay, and put a top on it. Then the workers got inside and with pumps with hoses, okay, they didn't dig all that with a shovel, with hoses, ate away at the mud, the dirt, till the stone sank. Okay? And once you get down 30 feet, 33 feet, you're in an atmosphere. But he's got an air pump, pumping air in there. Okay, so then they put a new set of stones on, and they've got, at 33 feet, they've got a top to it, a plate. Okay? Then they build another 33 feet and sink it down. Okay? Now you got a ladder to go up, and a decompression chamber to go through. Okay? And it goes on.
So it was airtight? It was watertight?
No,
Okay.
there's compressed air coming in all the time to push the water out.
Okay.
So the bottom of the stone, it's not on other stone.
No, he's going down to stone. He's going down to the basement rock.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
But
he's going
washing
down to
the
basement
settlement
rock.
out from under it.
So like down there on the bay, that's how they put, a friend of mine just built that. They put the pillars in the ground, a driver, a water pump, you know, wash it out and all it's looking about. But it's, there it is.
And that pretty much all got started on Mr. Eads.
Yeah.
Now, I'll tell you a little bit, I'll tell you just a little bit more about
That's
this.
down there in LA.
Young man, You've been working for all day, you've done your 8, 10-hour shift and you're done. And you're down 4 chambers down and you wanna go to the bar and get a drink. Because you've been working in the mud. What do? You run up the ladder, go through the chamber, run up the ladder, you're out. Then what happens? You fall over dead.
You explode.
I go up the ladder. I go through the chamber. I go up the ladder. What happens when I walk out?
You decompress. You walk.
Because it took me 15 minutes instead of 3 minutes. And I've had time to change. So what did he do? He built a decompression chamber at the top. He built a system. But there's a whole, anyway.
You get it.
Anyway.
Smile.
Oh.
All right.
Any other questions?
Well, I have a question.
You get certified as an engineer. I know it's the best, but I just wonder if you ever got a certificate for it.
No, there was no such thing as a certification. Back then, there was no such thing as a certification for.
Now, that's the money grab of today.
That's the government for you today.
Got a comment, that process of digging out under a stone foundation and then sinking it down was similar to digging, to lining hand-dug wells back in the 1950s. That was a very common way of putting a line in a well as you do it.
Put a curve on another curve
During
and keep it
Claymore,
there.
Claymore, Oklahoma,
Pardon?
you live in Claymore,
Yeah.
we had a dean out here at Athens State named Rick Boyd, his wife Nancy.
No, don't know.
It was a university out there, I can't remember the name.
There's Rogers State University, named for Will Rogers. And the University of Tulsa is in Tulsa.
That's the wrong town, but somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, let me give you just a spiel about Claremore, Oklahoma. There is a Will Rogers Museum in Claremore, Oklahoma. He did not grow up in Claremore, Oklahoma. He grew up out in the country near Claremore. And the reason he says he's from Claremore is because it was on the railroad map. Okay, people could find where he grew up by being on the railroad map. His house is, the ranch is buried underwater now. They built a dam at Oologah and flooded it. But they took the home and moved it up to the ridge, if you will, with a high ground, okay? And you can visit his home, okay? And if you watch his movies, he was a political, how could you, wait, pick your modern day political commentator. They are all duplicating what Will Rogers said. He was just absolutely on the mark. You could take what he said back then and just change the background a little bit, and he'll tell you all the politicians are crooks, and I mean, it's just incredibly good.
Kind of reminds me of Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana, kind of has that about common sense.
I
You know what
don't
I'm talking about?
know.
Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana.
Yeah, he is.
He's always remind me of Will Rogers.
Any other questions about Eads?
No.
Did I entertain you?
Yes.
Okay.